Coming in Facebook, coming in YouTube, getting ready to start my show called Jimmy Rants. It is absolutely beautiful sunshine day out there today here in South Carolina. Lots of sun out there. I've got Jimmy Rants right now. I've got an interview at 1 o'clock, but I'm going to try to get out there, get a little bit of sunshine this afternoon. So yeah, get out there and enjoy it. I actually love the fall weather. Fall is different than spring. That yes, there's similar temperatures, but in the fall you don't deal with all the pollen in the air. And that's the thing that gets a lot of people in the spring is there's just so much pollen in the air in the springtime that it's a little bit uncomfortable to be outside, even though it's getting warmer from the winter, but you got all that pollen to suck in. Whereas in the fall, it's been hot, now it's getting cooler, but there's no pollen and you're seeing the leaves change. It's just, I think this is probably my favorite time of the year with the temperature and everything. So, hello Norma, thank you for being here today. I have learned, by the way, to turn on Do Not Disturb over on that phone so I don't have any more freezing on YouTube. Those of you that have been watching the live stream lately on YouTube, every time a spam call would come through, it would freeze the feed. I'm like, ugh. So I put it on airplane mode and then I put it on Wi-Fi and I can go live with you guys there so that you can watch the show uninterrupted. Hello, Johanna. Thanks for being here today. So yeah, we're going to start Jimmy Rant soon, but yeah, I was up super duper early today. Like I'm usually up very early for most people. Around 3 to 4 is usually when I wake up. Today I was up at 1 because I wanted to fit in time to watch the debate and kind of wish I had stayed in bed now because that was a complete waste of time. And I don't understand why they have to act that way in a presidential debate, but I guess that was their choice that they decided to do that. So, but anywho, we are going to get started here on Jimmy Rants here momentarily, and I got a really great topic in store for you guys today. So thank you for being here. As always, feel free to go ahead and share it on your page, share it on any group page that you're a part of. Get the word out there, and yeah, I am winding down on my podcast interviews, by the way, for the Living La Vida Low Carb Show and Real Talk because I'm going away in November and December. So I'm almost at the end of my recordings. I've got a few more this week, and I think maybe 1 or 2 more before the end of October, and then I'm done for the year with my interviews. So that's where I am with that. Starting to wind down. I'm actually looking forward to being off for the 2 months because other than the sabbatical last year, I really haven't done a whole lot of time away. And it has been a pretty rough year for me personally. And so the last 2 months of this year will definitely give me that opportunity to refresh and rejuvenate. Hopefully come back in 2021 all rip-roaring ready to go again. But thank you guys for being here today. We're going to get this show on the road, and here we go. The FDA has issued a brand new warning against mercury amalgams for your teeth. Find out the details here today on Jimmy Rants. Click on that little box down there in the corner. It'll take you straight to IGTV for today's episode. JimmyRants.com is the website, and as always, you can engage live in the content. Go follow me. I'm over on Instagram. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We are here Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, so thank you so much for being here today. We also simulcast live over here on my Facebook page, so thank you guys for being here, as well as over on my YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on Instagram. It goes up on IGTV. As soon as this is over, pops right up there. I put a few show notes in. It goes right on my main page of Instagram, so go check it out. If you missed the live, go watch it on replay. We also put it on replay over on YouTube. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants. You will find the show. Today is Wednesday. So the Wednesday episode of the Living La Vida Low Carb Show is now up as a Jimmy Rants bonus episode in video form over there. Dr. Lisa Coach is the name of the medical doctor I have on today, and we went all over the place. Lisa has a great personal story of how she overcame so many things in her health with a ketogenic diet and other protocols. She's a big fan of helping people improve their mitochondrial health. So if you're interested in kind of nerding out a little bit, she does go there. But we talked about all kinds of things, including some of the things related to COVID-19, some of the ways that 2020 has had us respond as humans. We went all over the place. So go watch that video to check out today's episode of the Live and Live Eat a Low Carb Show, or you can listen to it on the podcast later, llvlc.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then finally, pop over to the official website for this show. It's at jimmyrants.com. And while you're there, you can see all the past episodes. You can also show your support either through the Patreon link or through a PayPal link, and really a donation of any amount would be greatly appreciated. Okay, guys, so today I want to talk about teeth, and specifically those of you that have had your teeth worked on. Back in my early 20s, I was working as a runner in a law firm in Memphis, Tennessee. I graduated college at the age of 20. Remember, I've told you before, I got the heck out of the house as soon as I could. My abusive father. So at 17 and a half, I went straight to college, and I did summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring, and graduated in 3 years, had my degree, my double major in poli-sci and English in 3 years. 20 years old, trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and still dealing with the trauma that I had dealt with my dad. And so here I am in Memphis, Tennessee, working for a law firm, basically as the schlub who takes all the things to the courthouse to get filed. And anyway, so because I was a part of a really nice law firm in downtown Memphis, Tennessee, I had really good health insurance, which included dental insurance. And I remember very vividly having some pain in my teeth, the back sides of my teeth. And I'm like, okay, I now have dental insurance. I can feel that there's maybe cavities back there. Let's go get it checked out. So I go see this doctor, nice African-American gentleman, and he took care of my teeth. But what did he do? He put mercury amalgams in there. Now, this was in the early 1990s. So in the early 90s, mercury amalgams were pretty much the standard of care when it came to dental care. And so I had a ton put in back here, up there, back here, back here. And the reason I had so much decay was because of my crappy garbage eating days. I used to chew when I was a kid. I used to chew on hard candy, and then I'd leave it in there. I know it's so stupid now, but back then I was oblivious to what I was doing. I would chew hard candies and then just leave all that gunk up in there. And of course it was slowly fermenting and deteriorating the enamel on my teeth. But I was a kid, I didn't know. So by the time I was 20, 21, when I'm going to see this dentist, I'm having a whole bunch of mercury put in my mouth. Flash forward to about 8 to 10 years ago, I forget exactly when it was, but around 8 to 10 years ago, I was noticing this really horrible metallic taste in my mouth. Like extraordinary metallic taste. It was a smell, and it was emanating, I could tell, from those teeth that had the mercury in them. And I knew it was a combination of things. I knew it was leakage of the mercury, and it was also the infection, because there were root canals. He basically did 4 root canals on me and filled them all up with this mercury amalgam stuff. And so I knew I had to get something done. So I went and saw a holistic dentist here locally in my area, and he was able to... Are you going to start all that again? Hush. I'm live. You can't go crazy on me. Yeah, is that the mercury in your mouth doing that to you? She always does this. Talks right in the middle of my show. Shut up, cat. So I had known like infection from where those root canals were, And then the mercury, I could obviously taste it in my mouth. So I knew I had to go see a holistic dentist, and I did. And I remember he had these hazmat suits on, and they basically protected me because you can get heavy exposure to the mercury as they're extracting it. And what I'm going to read about here today, and if you're just joining us, the FDA has now issued a safety warning against the use of mercury in dental amalgam fillings, and also warning people about not getting them removed, which there are ways to get it removed, and I have printed out some literature about that, but we'll get to that here in just a minute. I want to get to what the FDA has said. This is a brand new statement, you guys. And those of you that are a little bit older, they don't use mercury anymore because we know better, but a lot of people are older, still have these mercury fillings in their body. They don't know what to do with them. And so they're giving some recommendations about the use of dental amalgams, and especially with specific people. So let's get into what the FDA safety communication had to say. This was issued on September 24th. So this is literally hot off the presses. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, is providing recommendations about the use of dental amalgams in certain groups of people who may be at a greater risk to potential adverse health effects from mercury exposure. Did they ever think it was actually a good idea to use mercury? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, we used to want to pop the thermometers open because the mercury in there would bounce and it would be fun to play with. Little did we know just how toxic that mercury was inside of the thermometer. And yet here they are, not only sticking mercury in your mouth, but then it has a direct access. The fumes go right to the brain and direct access to your body. And we're going to talk about what some of those physical effects of mercury exposure are here in a minute. But the FDA is now saying, oops. And they're saying pregnant women and any woman that has a developing fetus, they're both at risk. Women who are planning to get pregnant, these are all people at risk from mercury exposure. Nursing women and their newborns and infants, children, especially those under the age of 6, people who have a pre-existing neurological disease, something like Alzheimer's, even traumatic brain injury, people who have impaired kidney function. And you might think, what in the world does that have to do with the mercury? Apparently, mercury is hurting people like that because think about it, it's one of the detoxification organs in the body, so it makes sense. And people with a known heightened sensitivity, allergy to mercury or other components of the dental amalgam. So for over 20 years, the FDA has been reviewing, considering, and holding public discussions about the scientific literature and all the evidence on the safety of dental amalgams. Key among our findings are the uncertainties about the acceptable reference exposure levels of mercury gas, vapors, the potential for mercury to convert to other mercury compounds in the body, and whether the degree of the accumulation of mercury from dental amalgams results in negative adverse health outcomes. I will tell you, by the way, when I first, about a decade ago, started tasting the metallic taste and started having those smells coming from my mouth, I went to see a traditional dentist just around the corner here, the best dentist in the area, Dr. Mathis, but he's a traditional dentist. And I started telling him some of the issues and that I was concerned about the mercury. And he said, oh, you don't want to mess with the mercury. And I'm like, but if that's the causal factor in why I'm having this bad taste in my mouth, it was literally changing how food tasted to me. That's how strong it was. And he's like, no, you can't touch it. And I'm going, okay. So then I got the second opinion and I went and got the mercury amalgams removed from a holistic dentist, and then he cleaned up the infections in there from the root canals. And curious story, by the way, about what happened in 6 months after I had that done. Are you sitting down? I wrote about it in my book, Cholesterol Clarity. I wrote about it in there. I was in Australia doing a speaking tour back in 2012. And I met this guy named Dr. Ron Ehrlich. He's one of my Moment of Clarity quote experts in cholesterol clarity. Dr. Ehrlich is a dentist, holistic dentist, and he said, did you know that if you have higher cholesterol, it could be because you have mercury and infections in your mouth. And I'm going, what? He said, yeah, a lot of people go see their mainstream doctor and they see their total cholesterol at 350, for example. And the doctor wants to put them on a statin drug. And never once does the doctor say, gee, I wonder, do you have mercury amalgams in your mouth? Do you have infections? Do you have like inflammation in your teeth? Do you smell any smells out of your teeth? Nothing like that's ever asked when you go see a mainstream medical doctor. All they see is the cholesterol is up. Well, it turns out that the infection in your teeth, from root canals mainly, and mercury are toxins that raise inflammation in the body. Well, when you raise inflammation, you also raise cholesterol. So guess what happens 6 months after I get all that cleaned up in my mouth? All the mercury's gone, all the infections are gone. My total cholesterol, you guys, dropped 100 points. Is anybody ever talking about this to you? Does your dentist talk about it? Does your doctor talk about it? No. They don't put the two and two together. And this is why kind of having a holistic approach when it comes to all aspects of your health. You may not have had any idea that your dental health had anything to do with your cholesterol. And yet it did. And that was my experience. Getting it all taken care of by a holistic dentist. Getting that mercury amalgam out of my mouth. Getting all those infections cleaned up in where I had root canals done. All of that, getting that fixed, lowered my cholesterol 100 points. It's pretty phenomenal. If you're just joining us, the FDA has issued a safety warning against mercury in dental amalgam fillings. And so we're reading from the September 24th notice where they're basically warning people about this. The FDA held a meeting of our dental products panel of the Medical Devices Advisory Committee back in 2010 and a meeting of the Immunology Devices panel in November of 2019 to discuss the uncertainties in the literature about mercury. Elemental mercury used in dental amalgams is known to cause adverse health effects, particularly when the extent of exposure is high in individuals who have a reduced ability to remove mercury from their bodies and in individuals who are sensitive to mercury. Well, think about it. Mercury is a heavy metal toxin. There is no need for mercury to be in your body whatsoever. And I think even to this day, even though I've had all of that cleaned out of my mouth, I think to this day, I'm still dealing with some of the ramifications of that mercury exposure. Because every time I bit down into food, every time I drank some hot soup or a hot liquid, all of that smell, all of that metallic taste would just get more and more intense. And I knew it was releasing that mercury into my body because those fillings were like in all four corners of my mouth. How could I avoid that exposure? Although the majority of evidence suggests exposure to mercury from dental amalgams does not lead to negative health effects in the general population, little to no information is known about the effect this exposure may have on members of the specific groups that we listed earlier who may be at greater risk of potential negative health effects on mercury exposure. Here's the thing. Mercury is not a normal element in the body. It is considered a heavy metal toxin. And so if you have it in your body in any way, it's going to have an impact on your health. And this is a warning to anybody that's ever had mercury fillings, not trying to scare you, but I am trying to inform you. And the more informed you are, the better choices you can make. Maybe you've struggled in your health. Maybe you're starting to have funky tastes in your mouth and you don't know what's going on. It could be the mercury in your amalgam. Accordingly, the FDA recommends that non-mercury restorations, the fillings such as composite resins and glass enomers, cements be used. I think that's the one I got, is the glass ionomer cement when possible, and then in people who may be at highest risk for adverse health effects from the mercury, which I say is everybody. They want to talk about this at-risk group of these, 8 or 9 groups of people. I think anybody would be susceptible because, again, there's no healthy amount of mercury that needs to be in the body. It is a heavy metal toxin that should be removed. The FDA does not recommend anyone, this is the part I disagreed with them on. The FDA does not recommend anyone remove or replace existing amalgam fillings that are in good condition unless it's considered medically necessary by a healthcare professional who says you have a documented sensitivity to the mercury material. Removing intact amalgam fillings may result in a temporary increase in exposure of mercury vapor released during the removal process, in addition to the potential loss of a healthy tooth structure. I'll tell you, when I had mine removed, and again, I had it in all four corners of my mouth, and it hurt like the dickens, by the way, for days. After I had all those removed and they refilled it with all the good stuff, again, I had a holistic doctor who did all the things to make sure that I was protected from being exposed to that mercury. They were all wearing hazmat suits, so they did it the right way. And I was looking up the safe way to remove it. So the FDA probably doesn't approve of this method, but if they already know you've got problems with mercury and it's already causing issues, and we could talk about what those are right now, and then I'll get into the safe removal before we go back to what the FDA was saying. You know, there are ways to remove it and do it healthfully. And I think they need to be like talking about some of these things. But the reason you want to have it removed is they're problematic to your health. And the sooner we realize that, I'm glad they're sounding the alarm on these groups, but I think it's everybody that has them. It's kind of like back when they used to put asbestos in the ceiling panels at the schools. Remember when asbestos was in every school? When I was growing up, asbestos ceilings were everywhere. Would we have asbestos ceilings today? No. They got rid of all those things when they found out they were harming kids' health. Well, it's the same goes for the mercury. Mercury is the new asbestos. We need to be getting rid of them and doing it the right way. I agree with them. You don't want to willy-nilly be exposed by drilling into this mercury to get it out. You don't want to willy-nilly just have it go all over the place and then expose you to a heavy dose of toxin. That's why when they did it on me, they blocked my throat. They had like a little balloon thing that would block it on my throat, and then they had all my face covered. All that was open was just my teeth that they had to work on. Everything else was covered up, so I wouldn't even be exposed at all. They were in complete hazmat suits. It was really kind of freaky being on the operating table, so to speak. I was on laughing gas, and they had numbed me up really good. I remember when they first numbed me, and then you start drilling, and it wasn't numbed enough. I'm like, oh! I was like screaming. Don't start drilling until you get all that pain to go away. And I'm just one of those people that takes extra of this stuff, but they did take care of it all. All right, so what are some of the dangers with dental amalgams made with mercury? All silver-colored fillings are dental amalgam fillings, and all of these fillings are about 50% mercury. Although a number of other countries have banned their use, dental mercury amalgams are still being used in many regions of the world, in some places in the US. Mercury is continuously emitted from a dental amalgam filling and is absorbed and retained in the body. I could taste it, guys. Like at first it was like, okay, it was subtle, but then it got strong over the years. What was that, 1992, one? I'm trying to remember. I graduated from college in 92. So it was 93 that I got the dental work done in 1993. And then I started tasting it around 2008, 9, 10, somewhere in there. And then I had them removed in 2013. So it was kind of a process. But by the time I got to 2009, 10, that's when it was really bad. Like it was getting so strong I could barely even take it anymore. It will particularly store in the brain, the kidney, the liver, the lungs, and the gastrointestinal tract. The output of mercury can be intensified by the number of fillings and other activities. So I remember I had it in all four corners of my mouth. Not just one little tooth. I had a group up here, a group over here, a group over here, and a group over here. So I was like the king of mercury in my mouth. It is exacerbated by chewing, which every time you ate food, you were chewing. Teeth grinding, I never grinded my teeth. And then consuming hot liquids. Maybe that's why subliminally I never got into hot coffee, not only because I didn't like the taste of coffee, but I didn't like how my mouth tasted so metallic when I would drink something hot like that. Mercury is also known to be released during the placement, replacement, and removal of dental mercury amalgam fillings. So here are some of the things that are related, health dangers related to mercury fillings. Allergies, especially to mercury, Alzheimer's disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, antibiotic resistance, autism, autoimmune, cardiovascular issues, chronic fatigue, hearing loss, kidney disease, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, periodontal disease, depression and anxiety, reproductive dysfunction, suicidal ideations, thyroiditis, and of course mercury poisoning. Those are all things that these mercury amalgams can lead to. Now, how many people deal with those kind of conditions and then they never really put two and two together that it's the mercury that they got put in their mouth? Pregnant women and children are known to be highly susceptible to the dangers of mercury, and researchers have also demonstrated danger to dentists as well as dental personnel because they're around it all the time. Remember, it's not just the mercury itself, it's the vapors, and the vapors are invisible, so you can't always see. So they talk about some of the better fillings, but I want to get into the safe method. So the FDA stated clearly they don't want you removing unless you're just in this absolute danger category. Well, I think you can get to that absolute danger category. And why make people go through that if there are ways to remove the mercury safely? And so there is this website, IAOMT.org. They're an international board of oral medicine technology, blah, blah, blah. But they have this thing called the SMART technique, the safe mercury amalgam removal. And it was created and updated July the 19th, 2019. July 1st, 2016, this protocol was named the SMART protocol. They started training dentists to become certified in SMART. This is mostly holistic dentists that do this, but really any dentist can do it if they go through the training. All dental amalgam restorations have that 50% mercury, and almost all of them emit mercury vapors, which are causing all those health issues we were just talking about. Scientific research demonstrates exposure to the dental profession, to babies. That's why you don't want to be pregnant and have these and other forms of mercury exposure. So what they do is they utilize the available scientific evidence. They've developed extensive safety recommendations for removal of these existing dental mercury amalgams, including detailed protective measures. So let's get into what some of that is. They use all the traditional safe methods for removing amalgam. So masks, water irrigation, high volume suction, which that's the coolest part. You know, and when that's in your mouth, it's kind of gross, but at the same time, you're like, oh, thank God, because you start drowning in your own spit if they don't do that. But I remember when they were extracting all of that out of my mouth, all that mercury, that suction, I could feel it like taking up bricks worth of that mercury. It was pretty amazing. And getting that stuff out of there, just psychologically, it just felt good having that leave my body. And I remember in the days after having all that mercury removed from my mouth, how much better. And it could just been a placebo effect because I knew I did something good, but I felt so much better. The taste that I was always getting, that metallic taste and the grossness of the food, it immediately got better. There was just so many good things about having all that removed. All right, so let's get into what they specifically do to keep you safe to remove the mercury. An amalgam separator must be properly installed, utilized, and maintained to collect the mercury. So as soon as they get it out of the body, there's a collection agent. So they have that available. Obviously, through the suction machine, it goes right into a place that would keep it safe from being exposed to anybody. Every room where mercury fillings are removed must have adequate filtration in place. So a high volume air filtration system, such as a oral aerosol vacuum, capable of removing the vapors that are in the air and amalgam particles generated during the removal of one or more mercury fillings. That was cool because I was laying down on the operating table and they were in there, and yeah, up there you could see all of this suction. It was almost like, you know, you could feel yourself getting pulled up. It was sucking so hard because anything that got emitted into the air, remember they're all wearing hazmat suits. I'm completely covered up except for my mouth, and they even cover my throat so I don't get exposure to it that way. And if it goes up, then it's getting sucked up into that system. If possible, windows should be open to reduce the mercury concentration in the air. I don't remember the windows being open, but it was a well-ventilated room we were in. The patient will be given a slurry of charcoal, chlorella, and similar absorbent to rinse and swallow before the procedure, unless the patient declines if they have a contraindication. Protective gowns and covers for the dentist, dental personnel, and the patient must be in place. So, like I said, they had me completely covered, like from my mouth up, like it was covering my nose, all of this, like I couldn't even see what they were doing. They had me so covered up, and then they had a balloon that kind of like blocked the back of my throat. I was still able to breathe because they stuck like a little oxygen thing behind the balloon so I could still breathe. But it was really elaborate the way they tried to protect me from being exposed to all that mercury. All present in the room must be protected because substantial quantities of particles generated during the procedure will elude collection by suction. It's been demonstrated these particles can spread from the patient's mouth to the hands, to the arms, to the face, to the chest, and all parts of the body. So again, that's why they were in hazmat suits. That should tell you something. If the dentist is in a hazmat suit to protect themselves from what they're taking out of your body, is that not clue number one that this is pretty bad stuff? And if they're taking that kind of precaution to protect themselves, what was all that release of mercury in my mouth that caused the metallic taste, that had the weird smells? What was that doing to me? And I often think about this as, you know, I always try to like put two and two together. Why do I still have some challenges with my weight? Why do I still have, you know, various little nuances of things that I notice? And I wonder how much that exposure to the mercury had an impact. I don't know. I'm just like theorizing that there are certainly things in place that could be challenges that you're not even thinking about like this. So non-latex nitrile gloves utilized by the dentist and all dental personnel. That's pretty standard. Face shields and head coverings by the dentist and all personnel. Like I said, they were in hazmat suits. Either a properly sealed respiratory grade mask, which is those N95 masks, to capture mercury or positive pressure. Positively sealed mask providing air or oxygen must be worn in order to protect the patient's skin and clothing. A full body impermeable barrier as well as a full head, neck, face barrier under and around need to be utilized. They had me wrapped up like a burrito. Like literally every part of my body was covered up completely except for this area. And again, they put like a balloon behind the mouth area so that none could go backwards. And then they stuck an oxygen little thing so I could breathe that way and get extra oxygen so I'm not passing out because I'm not getting enough oxygen. Let's see. External air or oxygen delivered, like I was just talking about, through a mask for the patient to assure that you do not inhale any of the mercury vapors. A nasal cannula is acceptable alternative for this purpose. A dental dam that is made with non-latex nitrile material placed and properly sealed. That's that balloon that I was talking about in the back of the throat. A saliva ejector must be placed under the dental dam to reduce mercury exposure. So yeah, they were literally sucking constantly. During amalgam filling removal, the dentist must utilize an oral aerosol vacuum in close proximity, 2 to 4 inches from the mouth, to mitigate mercury exposure. Like literally, they were doing everything they could, because it is risky when you start drilling into mercury. All that's going to get in the air, and it's a very sophisticated. If you don't trust that your dentist knows how to do that properly, find a holistic dentist. They do this all the time. This is what they are trained to do. Now, I will tell you, that weren't cheap. I want to say my whole mouth, getting it all taken care of, was over 10 grand. But it was 10 grand so worth it to me. And it's peace of mind now that I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now at the age of 48, I don't have to worry about an untimely chronic disease developing because I still had mercury in my mouth. High-speed evacuation produces better capture when fitted with a cleanup device, which is not mandatory but preferred. Copious amounts of water that reduce heat, because when they're drilling, that's causing a lot of heat. And of course, mercury under heat causes it to be even more vaporous, and so lots of water. A conventional high-speed evacuation device to suck all that stuff out. The amalgam needs to be sectioned into chunks and removed in as large a chunks as possible. Like I said, as they were removing it, I could hear, going through the suction thing, I could hear the big chunks going out. I could feel them in the parts of my mouth that weren't numb. I could feel them in there. Once the removal process is done, the patient's mouth should be thoroughly flushed with water, then charcoal, chlorella, and other adsorbents. So they're trying to make sure any remnants of that mercury get sucked out of there. Dentists must comply with all federal, state, and local regulations on proper handling of the mercury, and during the opening and maintenance of suction traps and operatories on the main suction unit, dental staff should utilize the appropriate personal protection, PPE, basically. So that's the smart way to get rid of the mercury amalgams, despite what the FDA has issued in their report. At this time, the FDA does not find the available evidence supporting a complete ban on the use of mercury in dental amalgams. FDA, you're a bunch of friggin' idiots. You're going through all this painstaking warning of these people and these people groups that are at most at risk. I would argue it's all people, but they listed a group of people at the beginning of this Jimmy Rants. I shared what they were. And they're sitting here pretending, oh, it's still, oh, it's okay to keep using mercury. If you are going to see a dentist and you have to have a filling for some reason, there are enough composite type materials now that are non-mercurial. It's stupid to get mercury now. It really is. There's too many great materials that could be used. And now I have, in all 4 of those corners where the mercury used to be, I have very good material. I'm licking on them now. I can feel them in there. They've been solid for me. Haven't had any trouble of the teeth chipping away. Of course, keto helps with that because I don't eat the way that I got those bad fillings or bad cavities that needed filling to begin with many years ago. I don't eat that way anymore. So that helps maintain the good health now. But I am so glad in hindsight that I did do it. And there's no way you could ever convince me or anybody I love to get mercury in their mouth again. The weight of the existing evidence does not show exposure to mercury from dental amalgams leads to any adverse health effects in the general population. Well, the problem is you don't know that. And in the absence of knowledge, one way or the other, you don't default to, well, I guess it's okay, when we know there are certain groups that don't do well with it. This is the frustration with the FDA, by the way, and this isn't the first time I've had trouble with the FDA, but oh my goodness, mercury is bad. Oh my goodness, we need to be careful with mercury amalgams, but we really don't have any evidence against it. So, like, that doesn't help anybody. Its longevity is better than that of alternatives, so that's the reason they use it. It lasts longer in the teeth. I've had these materials in my mouth now for the past 7, 8 years. And like I said, they're solid in there. I've had no problems with this material. I think it was the cement material that they put in there. No problems at all. No weird taste around it, no metallic taste, no nothing that's causing me problem. So I don't know why they have to continue to insist upon something that is a known toxin in mercury. In addition, a ban on amalgam may result in deferred or no treatment and have unintended health implications, especially in the communities where there's limited availability of alternative materials. So making the materials more available. That's solvable. If we're going to play the, well, we don't have anything else, so that would be like in a food desert, somebody decides to drop a big, huge crater box full of rat poison. Okay? All right, guys, come on. We got donut-shaped rat poison for you. Come on. Grab them all you want. Just eat up. Eat up. That would be irresponsible, right? Well, that's what you're doing when you're allowing people to have mercury and not warning them of the toxicity that it's putting on their body. And the main thing it does is it raises the inflammation. And raising the inflammation raises cholesterol. And when cholesterol is raised, it can cause issues all throughout the body to get all off. And if your vitamin D levels are low, the cholesterol can't necessarily go where it needs to go, and you put your body in a very precarious position. And if we're about optimizing health, we don't want to put anything in the body that's going to be the antithesis of health, right? So, recommendations for patients and caregivers about the use of dental amalgams. Be aware, and they talked about all these groups before, I won't mention them again, but be aware of all those groups we mentioned earlier in the Jimmy Rants. And if you're an individual in one of these groups, the FDA recommends that alternative non-mercury materials like composite resins or glass ionomer cements, that's the one I have, be used when possible and appropriate. Be aware the durability of any tooth filling depends on many factors besides the tooth filling material. To help your teeth and fillings last as long as possible, maintain a healthy diet. Again, that's code for low-fat diet. I would say maintain a healthy, non-sugary, and turns to sugary diet. So that would be a low-carb ketogenic diet. Because anything that's starchy, grainy, sugary, they're all going to be problematic on your teeth. You should maintain proper oral hygiene. That's kind of, well, duh. And then have regular dental checkups. You should also discuss treatment options, including all the associated benefits and risks of using amalgams with your dentist. And then the recommendations for dental health providers on dental amalgams. So this is what they're telling dentists that they should be doing when it comes to treating their patients as it relates to amalgams. So they have a whole recommendation for the use of dental amalgams on their website, FDA does. Discuss the risks and benefits with your patients and encourage you to share the information from the FDA with your patients prior to any consent to treatment. When discussing dental amalgams, avoid using the term silver filling. Well, that is what they've been called traditionally, as this may imply the filling is made from silver and does not accurately convey the mercury component. Well, you can say, you know what, we're going to put those silver fillings in there. Now, keep in mind, half of that is mercury. And there have been a few people report that if they have mercury and get poisoned by the mercury, here's some of the things. We have other materials. Like if patients were given that choice and then they're like, oh, okay, I'd like to be poisoned, please, then that's their choice at that point. But if you tell them, hey, I'm going to put this material in here, the silver filling, and it's got half mercury in there, I think people would be like, whoa, I've heard a lot of bad things about mercury. When using an amalgam, again, talking to the dentist still, use encapsulated amalgam, avoid bulk elementary mercury to minimize occupational exposure, avoid placing it in direct contact with other fixed or removable metallic devices, and then use mercury hygiene best practices to minimize the patient's exposure to the vapors. How about this? How about we stop using mercury amalgams? Why is this hard? Why are we putting a neurotoxin in people's bodies that's causing all those things that I talked about earlier? If you came in late to Jimmy Rants, go back and watch this one again. All those people that have that mercury filling, and this is personal to me, you guys, because I had mercury in all four corners of my mouth put in when I was in my early 20s. And thank God it was right around my late 30s, early 40s, when I finally had all of that mercury removed from my mouth, because I was tasting metal and I was having weird smells. I would bite down on food and I could literally smell vapors coming out of my mouth. It was gross, I know. And so this is very personal to me, and the FDA has now finally at least recognized that there's challenges with mercury, and yet they're still recommending it. It makes no sense at all. So they go over the potential health effects of mercury exposure. Now, I mentioned it from that other website. Let's see what they have to say. It is a known toxicant to the nervous system, and long-term exposure to high doses of mercury, such as occurs in an occupational setting, may be associated with mood disorders like anxiety, depression, irritability, sleep difficulties and disturbances, fatigue, feeling tired, memory troubles, disturbances, tremors, difficulty with coordination, visual changes, changes in hearing, and kidney damage. They know all of those things are happening with mercury, and yet still they're saying, oh, I guess, Dennis, y'all can use this because we know it's widely available and it lasts the longest. When you know better, FDA, you do better, and you don't keep recommending something that you know is causing problems in the health of the people that's using it. It is irresponsible. The concentrations of mercury vapor released from dental amalgams are very low compared to those typically associated with toxicity. Well, there is this thing called low-level toxicity. I mean, all right, let's put it this way. Let's have low poop in our food, okay? You want to have just a little bit of poop. It's not like having a big old turd for a steak. It's just a little bit of poop spread on top of that steak like butter. Are you getting exposed to the poop? Of course you are. So let's stop it with the toxicity load is not nearly as bad. Yeah. Stop it. Just stop it. Sometimes I just wonder, do they think we're that stupid that we can't read through between the lines? Over more than 2 decades, the FDA and other public health agencies have conducted a number of scientific data related to the potential health effects of dental amalgams, and they have generally arrived at the same conclusion that the weight of the evidence, blah, 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 blah. Okay. All right, so then they go into the differences between mercury and using resin-based composites. It's pretty good. All right, so that's the bottom line, guys. They finally acknowledge that mercury is a problem when it comes to these dental amalgams. And again, if you joined us late, I had mercury amalgams in all 4 corners of my mouth put in there when I was 21 years old. I had pretty much free dental care working for a law firm in Memphis. In hindsight, if I knew then what I know now, there would have been no way, Jose, I would have ever had all that metal put in my mouth. And that was also about the time I started gaining weight for the first time. Of course, I was going through other stuff. I was recovering from childhood trauma, and I was eating to, I was looking over my shoulder and all that. So you kind of have to factor in all these things. But how much of an impact did this mercury have on me? And it wasn't until, I started Atkins at 32, it wasn't until about 7-8 years later when I finally started trying to deal with this and getting better materials put in. And while I was able to lose weight in 2004, I have struggled with weight in the years that have followed. And I wonder how much of that was maybe some of the lingering effects from this mercury. It's just all things to think about. We always want to put, Oh, if you have weight on the body, it's a diet problem. It's not always a diet problem. And like I mentioned earlier, when I got all of that mercury out of my body, when I replaced it with composite, when we cleaned up all of those root canals and everything, my cholesterol level, total cholesterol level dropped by 100 points. And so there's certainly a connection to your total health with what's happening in your dental health. And hopefully this Jimmy Rants today warning about mercury kind of puts on the radar screen something maybe you had not thought about before in your total health. So, all right, let's see what you guys have to say. We're going to come over here first to you guys here on Instagram, then over to Facebook, finally over to YouTube. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. See what you have to say. Richard says, you're the man. No, you're the man, Richard. Appreciate you, man. Richard says, I have the cement in my mouth. Also refuse the fluoride rinse. The staff always looks at me like I'm an idiot when I refuse. Yeah. There's a lot of things about the dental profession that are just as frustrating as the mainstream medical health system as well. But thank you for your comments, Instagram. Let's pop over here now to my Facebook page. What's up, Facebook? See what you have to say. Loving the beard, says Lisa. Well, thank you. I've been working on it pretty good. Try to keep it clean, but it is what it is. Cheryl says, finally, after all these years, yeah, it took them long enough, but they're still not full-fledged saying, no, don't ever use mercury. I wish they got there, but at least they're recognizing for pregnant women, women who want to get pregnant, nursing women, the children under the age of 6, people with neurological disease, people with impaired kidney function, and people with a known allergy and sensitivity to mercury. Those are the people they think need to avoid this. And I'm thinking, okay, what is that in America? Of the 330 million people, that's what? 60, 70 million people? Why not make it across the board everybody? I don't know why they need to use mercury at all when we have all these better materials now. Why do I need x-rays all the time, says Kira. yeah, trust me. The dental industry is almost as bad as the mainstream medicine industry, Kira. All right, thank you, Facebook. Let's see what YouTube has to say. Hey, guys, what's going on? Craig says, I often get the metallic taste in my mouth. I just assumed that was acetone from keto. Is there a cheap way to tell the difference? Do you recommend any specific devices to measure acetone? Well, I do have an acetone measuring device that I use. BioSense is this little meter here, and you blow into it. But if you have mercury amalgams, I would just assume, Craig, that metallic taste is because you shouldn't have the metallic taste from ketones longer than a couple weeks. It doesn't stick around. Once you're keto adapted, that tends to go away. Currently drinking coffee and tasting metallic. Yes, dude, if you have mercury in your teeth, I would highly recommend you try to find a holistic dentist and get this taken care of. Kim says, I've already picked out a biological dentist in my area to have this done. Luckily, I no longer have a mercury filling, but I do have 2 root canals. Oh, I know all about the root canals. I had 5 root canals done. And again, from chewing hard candy and leaving it in there when I was a kid. Duh. But getting those infections cleaned up made the smells go away, made me feel better, and of course that cholesterol level dropped, so that was good. Shirley says, I wonder when they're going to care about mercury in vaccines. Yeah, they throw it in vaccines. They sure do. My mom has some of those fillings, or at least she did. I should ask her about it. Yeah, I think anybody that's of a certain age, I think if you're over 35, you may have, I don't know when they stopped using mercury widespread, but and according to this story, they still use mercury even to this day, but it's not as ubiquitous as it used to be. Back when I was younger, and people 35 and older were younger, mercury was pretty much the go-to for everybody. And so, yeah, I would definitely inquire and say, hey, you having any weird tastes in your mouth and that kind of thing. All right, let's go back over here to Instagram, see if there's any last minute comments on this one. And I see none. So guys, the FDA has a brand new communication, a safety communication, just came out September 24th, and they finally acknowledge that mercury in the dental amalgams are problematic. and they only identified a select group of people. Nice little list they put here of the people they think that are at most at risk. But I would argue all of you are at risk. If you've ever had dental work done, especially those of you older than 35, and you have metal in your mouth, the whole, silver lining, silver fillings, half of that is made of mercury. And if you start smelling smells, tasting metallic, I hope today's Jimmy Rants puts it on your radar screen to get it checked out. I will tell you now, 7-8 years later, when I had all that removed, all that metal, all the mercury is gone. I've got, better resin materials now. They cleaned up all the root canals and all those infections are now healed. I feel better. I never have the weird tastes in my mouth. I never have those smells anymore. It could be so worth it for you, because all of those diseases that I listed earlier are not inevitable, but they're highly likely. Your likelihood of developing one or more of those is extremely high. So hopefully this was informative here today on Jimmy Rants. And that's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. And as always, engage live. I'm right here on Instagram, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Go follow me over there. I'm at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVIN LOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, engage live. We also simulcast live over here on Facebook. So thank you guys for being here today. We also simulcast over on the live stream of my YouTube channel. Thank you all for being here today on Jimmy Rants. If you missed the live, you can watch it on replay right here on Instagram on IGTV. We'll put it up shortly after the show is over. We also put the past episodes up over on YouTube. If you type in a keyword Jimmy Rants, you will find the show. Today is Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show Day, and we have a special Jimmy Rants bonus episode. Dr. Lisa Coach. Go listen to that, or you can watch it over on YouTube, or listen to it today on the Livin' La Vida Low Carb Show, LLVLC.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then finally, pop on over to the official website of this show. It's JimmyRants.com. All the past episodes are housed there. And most importantly, you can support my work. Do you like what I do? You guys love this? Like, I try to bring you a variety of topics. And if you see value in that, then throw some value back at me. There's a PayPal link for a one-time donation. Or if you want to become a monthly Patreon, you can definitely do that as well. All of those links, you guys, are at JimmyRants.com. That's it for now, you guys. We will be back tomorrow with more Jimmy Rants. Bye. All right. Interesting stuff, right? The wing by x-rays. I mean, not much has changed in 6 months, so stop with the x-rays. Well, they do get to charge money for that. So, like I said, mainstream medicine is that way. I think sometimes they run specific tests, not to really show anything, but because they can charge you money and they get a cut from that. So it's too bad. It's too bad some of those tests, they don't just sell to the patient at cost. All of those tests are not only the cost of the test, but also the profit for the doctor's office. And so if you take away the profitability of it, because it's just a test, then pay for the test, but not let the doctor make any profit off of it. That would be helpful. All right, guys, let me pop off of here for now. I do have an interview coming up in about an hour for my podcast. Like I said, I'm winding down the interviews for my podcast because I am going away the months of November and December. So almost finished with all the recordings of those that will air for the rest of this month and into, obviously, the rest of this month is today, and then into the full month of October. And then I'm gone for 2 months. So, all right, let me pop off of here for now. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Bye, YouTube.